Horror struck in Florida, 2006, when the 24-year-old woman went missing from her condo in Orlando. Confirmed to have left work the night before, she had even spoken to her relatives on the phone. But the next morning, she disappeared from her home, with no sign of a struggle having taken place. The only evidence the police were left with was her car parked a mile away and a condemning handprint on the bonnet, as well as surveillance footage depicting a concealed individual that may just be the luckiest suspect alive. Despite extensive searches by both her family and friends, the mystery is still waiting to be solved, but hopefully a breakthrough is due in 2025. Dives have taken place and new leads are being uncovered. This is the crazy disappearance of Jennifer Kesse. Hi, I'm Ori Cat and welcome to my channel. I deliver cases to you in the dramatisation format, so if that's something you enjoy, you'll be happy to know we upload once a week. As always, my aim is to give a voice to the victims and remember them as they were. So with that, let us begin. Jennifer Joyce Kesse was born on the 20th of May, 1981 in New Jersey.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Kesse.
It's her laughter, it's her wit.
She had one younger brother, Logan, who she was really close to. They were like best friends. Growing up, Jennifer could light up any room she walked into and had this really lovely smile that she carried with her through her teenage years and into her young adult years. Standing at 5'9" with mid-length blonde hair and green eyes, Jennifer was known to be a very intelligent girl. She was fun-loving and kind and would always be there for her family and friends. Like, she would literally drop everything to show love and support to the people she cared about. At some point, her family moved to Tampa, Florida, where Jennifer attended the Vivian Gaither High School. Tampa was a city on Tampa Bay along Florida's Gulf Coast. It is known to be a very business-orientated area, with a lot of authentic culture and a great nightlife scene. Overall, the place had a really laid-back and relaxed vibe. Now, once Jennifer graduated from high school, she went to university in Orlando, and this was about an hour and a half away from her parents. There, she attended the Central University of Florida. In 2003, she then completed her time there, leaving with a degree in finance. And as soon as Jennifer left university, a load of job offers just came flooding in. Because how could they not want Jennifer? She was smart, she was friendly, and really career-orientated. This caused Jennifer to decide that she would officially move to Orlando and work in the hospitality sector. To live in Orlando meant that in general, Jennifer would be living a much more outdoorsy lifestyle. With sun all year round and lots of green space, there was just so much to do. After turning down quite a few job offers, Jennifer finally accepted to become a finance manager at Central Florida Investments Timeshare Company. This was based in Akui, a suburb of Orlando. The area was popular with families and young professionals. Now, the company Jennifer worked at was basically a business that sells vacation properties owned by multiple individuals. During her first year at work, Jennifer was promoted twice. And this meant a better influx of money, which eventually led to her being able to buy her own condo in Orlando. She bought the condo in the Mosaic at Millennia complex in 2005. The complex was gated and a really good buy for Jennifer, and it was just something that marked that she was well and truly starting her life. It was situated well in Orlando, even near the mall at Millennia, a great place for someone like Jennifer who loved to shop. So everything was just really falling into place for Jennifer. She had a great home, a great job, and a loving, trusting relationship with her current boyfriend, Rob Allen. She had met him in the bar in Orlando when he was in town. Despite Rob living hours away in Fort Lauderdale, it didn't stop the two of them of going ahead with a relationship that they were just having so much fun in. So Jennifer was settled into the condo and the complex as a whole, though during the time she was living there it was undergoing construction. Part of the complex hadn't been built yet, therefore it wasn't unusual to see many different types of construction workers being out and about. But as Jennifer coexisted with these construction workers more and more, there were many times where they were beginning to make her feel really uncomfortable, and her concerns were similar to those of other women in the complex. Whether the workers stared a little too long or their catcalls were inappropriately loud, Jennifer didn't feel particularly safe coming and going from her condo. Now, despite all of this, Jennifer was very safety conscious, and as I've also said, very intelligent. Her parents had practically ingrained those values deep into her and her brother Logan. This stemmed from way back in the past, where Drew and Joyce were held in their home at gunpoint in New Jersey. They were thankful to have gotten out of that situation alive. So because of all this, and as a way to keep herself secure around the construction workers, Jennifer always made sure to keep all her lines of contact open. Whether that was her friends, her family, or her boyfriend, she would check in with them daily and would always return a phone call. She would even go as far as being on the phone with someone as she entered and she exited her condo, just so people on the other end of the line knew what was going on with her. Mid-January 2006, Jennifer went on vacation with her boyfriend Rob. Their vacation lasted a week, in which they went to Saint-Croix in the US Virgin Islands. Saint-Croix is meant to be really beautiful, with loads of fine dining places and these gorgeous beaches. Whilst Jennifer and Rob were away, she gave permission for her brother Logan to stay in her condo while she was gone, with some of his friends. So Logan invited two others along, Matt and Travis. Travis was one of Logan's friends, and Matt was actually one of Jennifer's ex-boyfriends. So the 22nd of January came around and Jennifer and Rob were heading back, so Logan and his friends naturally vacated their condo. Though Travis had accidentally left his phone behind there, but he felt awkward going back and getting it, so he just presumed that Jennifer would mail it to him when she got back. Returning late Sunday evening, Jennifer decided that she would stay at Rob's house overnight. And considering they were both pretty tired from the travelling, they had quite short tempers. They exchanged some fractious words, but regardless, Jennifer went to bed. And then she made the long commute to travel from Fort Lauderdale to her work on the Monday. Throughout the Monday, on the 23rd of January, Jennifer went through her workday like normal. She was efficient and hardworking, always showing why she had been the perfect candidate to earn those 2 promotions. She was confirmed to have left work at 6 p.m. and made a drive back to her condo. At around 6:15, while she was travelling, Jennifer had a phone call with her dad. He just wanted to check in and see how her vacation had gone with Rob, because, Drew and Joyce cared about their daughter so much, and Jennifer had a really strong bond with her parents. And so, Jennifer replied that she'd had a lot of fun with Rob, and she thanked him for calling and thinking of her, basically. The drive home for Jennifer was around 20 minutes, so once she hung up with her dad, she was nearly back anyway. And when she got back, the first thing Jennifer did was move the suitcases from her car back into her house. But after having done so much travelling the last few days, Jennifer felt really tired and she didn't want to spend the rest of her evening unpacking. So she had dinner and watched TV, and then she eventually called up Rob at around 10 p.m. This was basically just to say goodnight before she went to bed and also clear the air between them. Rob would later recall that that night on the phone she had sounded completely fine, just really exhausted. The following morning, on the 24th of January 2006, Rob was at home and had been waiting for Jennifer's call, because she always called him before she went to work. Unfortunately, there was no contact from Jennifer, but Rob tried not to let that panic him too much, because she may have just forgotten, considering how tired she had been the night before. But still, Rob persisted, and he intermittently called Jennifer throughout the day, yet none of his calls were answered. And this was starting to feel a bit weird for Rob, but his mind wasn't just going to jump to the worst case scenario. He just presumed that perhaps Jennifer had been in business meetings all day. At around 11 a.m, that was when Jennifer's employer started getting concerned, because it was so out of character for her just to not show up and then not tell anyone. because she was usually so punctual. So her employer phoned up her parents and told them that Jennifer hadn't come into work and could they just check to make sure that everything is okay. Jennifer's parents lived a whole 2 hours away, but they immediately left their home in Tampa and travelled straight up to Orlando. They just wanted to make sure that Jennifer wasn't ill or injured, or just to make sure she didn't need some type of urgent help. On the way to the condo, her parents tried calling Jennifer themselves, but with no response, they tried to be as proactive as possible. Therefore, they called her condominium manager and asked him to just go in and check to make sure everything was okay. So the manager went in and looked around, and then he reported back to her parents that everything was fine and there was nothing out of place. But one thing he did think was strange was that her car wasn't out front, it was gone. Once her parents arrived at around 3 p.m, they too saw that her car wasn't there. They rushed inside her condo and looked around, and as it was said, there was nothing out of place. There was no sign of any trouble. In fact, a wet towel was laid out, as well as clothes and other items suggesting that she had got ready for work like usual. Regardless, not wanting to take any chances, Drew and Joyce called the police. And then shortly after, Rob arrived to join them, and he got there before the police did. A single police officer was sent out, and once he was arrived, he looked around Jennifer's condo and kind of clocked the same things that her parents had. He talked to Jennifer's parents and boyfriend for a bit before determining that Jennifer and Rob had had a minor disagreement the night before. So the police officer said perhaps Jennifer had just stormed off after the fight. Perhaps she was a bit distressed or she wanted some time alone. Basically, the police officer kind of just shrugged and said she must have run off. Despite the police's reluctance to do anything, Jennifer's family and friends immediately took action into their own hands. That evening, between 5 p.m. to 7 p.m, they spent 2 hours going around handing out flyers with Jennifer's name and information on. So after 48 hours and still no sign of Jennifer, on the 26th of January, police finally decided to get involved. They organised search parties on foot and on horseback, as well as by boat, helicopter, car and ATV.
Knowing where somebody is to me the worst fear.
Jen's parents, Drew and Joyce Kesse, want peace and closure, but until that day comes, today, they have the support from agencies across the state, and that support is hard to miss.
You have a lot of people that have no motive other than the passion in their heart and the willingness and the desire and the training to want to try to help.
The police came by their first proper lead very quickly into the search. Well, in fact, the first day they started searching. They had plastered Jennifer's face and her missing car all over the news. And the image of her car in particular stuck out in one witness's mind. So this witness was a tenant who lived in a nearby apartment complex, Huntington-on-Green. And at 8:10 a.m, they told the police that they had noticed a vehicle, which looked like Jennifer's car, sitting outside their building. It had been there for a few days. So the police went out there on this tip and they immediately found Jennifer's abandoned car. Her 2006 Chevy Malibu was situated a mile away from her home. Photographing the vehicle, the police allowed it to be taken away for forensic investigation. Meanwhile, they wanted to look through all the surveillance footage in the area, just to see if it could give them anything they need. The first camera they looked at showed someone driving Jennifer's Chevy Malibu into the apartment complex at around noon. For about 30 seconds, the driver sits in the vehicle without exiting. Surveillance footage after showed an individual walking away from where they had originally parked the car. This was still around 12 p.m. on the day that Jennifer had originally gone missing, but unfortunately the image quality was too poor to identify the suspect. You see, the surveillance footage that was taken of the suspect walking was done by a camera which only really snaps shots every 3 seconds. And unbelievably, all 3 captures of the suspect's face had been obscured by the building's fencing. Once the car had officially gone for a forensic investigation, the police announced that Jennifer's affects were still in the car. This included her iPod, keys and purse, so this immediately tipped the police off that the motivation behind her disappearance hadn't been a robbery. Still, without Jennifer's phone and because it wasn't back at her condo, the police still tried to kind of track her phone pings. But unfortunately, her phone had been turned off the entire morning, and there had been no activity on her bank account either. Results came back on the car, and it was basically said that nothing could be pulled from it. They had no idea who had parked it up, and it was like it had been completely wiped down. Though Fox News at the time did get a hold of some of the investigation pictures of the car, and naturally spread around the most dramatic ones. In these photos, it showed that a violent struggle may have taken place on the hood of the car. There was a hand marking on it, like someone had been slammed down and then dragged off. The police used search dogs to see if they could pick up anything around where the car was parked, and the dogs soon latched onto a scent, though the police weren't really sure what it was. The search dogs led them all the way back to Jennifer's complex, which proposed two possible scenarios to the police. Either the person of interest had parked up the car and then for some reason walked back to Jennifer's home, or Jennifer had been in her car at some point during the time she disappeared. Next, the police asked other witnesses and Jennifer's neighbours in the Millennia complex if they had any extra information they could offer. And interestingly, neighbours of Jennifer did say that although they hadn't specifically heard anything, they did see her car driving erratically from the complex at 7:40 a.m. So, with everything the police have found out so far, they concluded that Jennifer's disappearance was no accident. They hypothesised that between either 7:30 a.m. to 8:30 a.m, in the short time frame, Jennifer had either been abducted when she came from her front door to the car, or had been accosted on her way to work. Focusing back on the surveillance footage, the police tried everything they could to make it clearer. The FBI were even called in to determine the age, the height, the gender, but they really couldn't come up with anything other than the fact that the perpetrator might be between 5'3" to 5'5". NASA also tried to enhance the video, but to no avail. So eventually the police concluded that the person in the video, who was now the main suspect of the case, was most likely a male in workman clothes. So at this point, the initial reward for information on Jennifer's whereabouts was around $15,000. But 2 days later, an anonymous donor put forth $100,000 with an expiration date. The next plan of action from the police's perspective was to question people close to Jennifer, such as prominent males in her life. The first person they questioned was Jennifer's ex-boyfriend Matt. Allegedly, he'd taken their breakup quite hard and had expressed some hopes that they would eventually get back together. He'd also been in Jennifer's condo while she was away. But then there was also Logan's friend Travis, who was also with them for that week. And what everyone found strange was, like Jennifer's phone, Travis's phone was nowhere to be found, suggesting that the same thing might have happened to both mobile devices. Matt and Travis were eventually cleared, leading the police on to investigating Rob Allen, Jennifer's current boyfriend. An investigation into Rob didn't take as long because he lived hours away and had a really valid alibi. Obviously, he had had a minor disagreement with Jennifer, but the police didn't think much of it. Then the police tried to interview the construction workers at the complex, though quite a lot of the workers were non-English speaking. Initially, the police thought this would be a good lead to follow because other residents at the Millennia had said that the construction workers had been harassing them.
When I would come home from work, there would be a large group of men outside drinking, and whenever I would have to walk past them, there would be a little bit of comments or just a lot of uncomfortable stares. It wasn't a great feeling. I didn't like it.
Not to mention, as I said earlier, Jennifer had expressed many concerns to her family and friends that she just didn't feel safe with the way the workers were whistling at her and just watching her. Allegedly, a lot of the workers scattered when they saw that the police were sniffing about because quite a few number of them were Mexican illegals. Therefore, the police was left with some workers to interview, not all of them though. But at the same time, even though the police had cleared those workers, there were certain things the department said as reasonings as to why they hadn't gleaned much more information from it. They said that it was apparently due to some kind of language barrier. After this, the police turned their attention to Jennifer's workplace and they took in her work computer for forensic analysis. On the computer, it was revealed that one of Jennifer's managers had wanted to pursue a relationship with her. Unfortunately for him, Jennifer had denied his advances because she didn't believe in workplace romance. Unlike the other suspects, the manager was interrogated multiple times, but eventually the police did clear him. With no further breaks in the case, Jennifer's tragic disappearance began to go cold, and the police just had nothing further to pursue. On the 1st of February 2006, Child Watch of America got involved, aiming to boost media attention. This was within the first few weeks of Jennifer's disappearance.
Jennifer, we just want you to know we love you. We're doing everything we can to find you.
There's been few answers and even fewer leads.
Someone out there knows something.
Because of this, 3 days later, on the 4th of February, at 8:30 a.m, volunteers organised a big search. This search included the areas around the Millennia Complex and the mall. Over 1,000 volunteers got involved. Then 6 days later, on the 10th, police finally released images which showed the general public what the potential suspect looked like. They said the clothes were likely darker than how they were shown in the photos. A day after, on the 11th, the police officially put out a warning, and this warning was addressed to the alleged perpetrators of Jennifer's disappearance to come forward, and that if they didn't, the police would find them. But what was interesting about the police's announcement at the time was that when they went on about Jennifer's case, they acted like multiple individuals were involved for her disappearance. Around a month later, on the 15th of March, the reward fund for $100,000 expired, and it was consequently withdrawn. But a few weeks later, on the 2nd of April, it encouraged his family to add another $10,000 to the reward fund. And then again, around 20 days later, on the 24th of April, the manager of the company Jennifer worked at, David Siegel, raised it to $250,000 with a deadline on the 24th of May. Ironically, David was the original donor of the $100,000, which was by someone anonymous at the time. He just didn't want his name out there. Time went past and the family maintained hope, but unfortunately, the expiration date went by and the $250,000 wasn't claimed. And though Jennifer's friends and family didn't stop fighting for her, there just wasn't that much to go on. At some point, Drew and Joyce had the idea to put Jennifer's face and information on decks of playing cards that would be distributed around all the local prisons in the area.
I'm Joyce Kesse, and I am the mother of 26-year-old Jennifer Kesse.
And I'm Drew Kesse. I'm Jennifer Kesse's father.
Jennifer has actually been missing. Today it is Tuesday, November 13th. It is actually 94 weeks ago today that Jennifer did not show up for work. This is a deck of playing cards that we, the family, created, and all 52 cards are Jennifer.
This is what we call the Genmobile. This is a riding billboard. Gives all the information for Jennifer, her website, her reward.
And Jennifer, wherever you are, we love you, and we're never going to stop trying to find you and bring you home. You know that.
This led to an inmate at Seminole County Jail, David Byron Russ, coming forward and telling Drew that he had information over Jennifer's disappearance. Orlando police refused to meet with Russ, so Drew went instead. But the information Russ gave never amounted to anything, which eventually led people to believe that Russ had been flat out lying. On the 17th of May 2007, around a year after the original reward fund had expired, police decided to try and jog people's memories again. So they released the full video surveillance footage to the public, in the hopes that this could perhaps get someone to come forward. Around this time, David Siegel had raised a reward fund to a temporary $1 million. This could be collected on the basis that Jennifer was alive. It had a July 4th deadline and was never claimed. During August 2007, around this time their family kept receiving threatening phone call and messages. The person kept saying that Jennifer was dead and that Logan was next. The family eventually managed to find out that these messages were coming from 28-year-old Tyler Green. After 2 years of harassment, on the 15th of December 2009, the family finally got an injunction against the stalker Tyler Green. So whilst all this had been going on, the police had begun to develop their suspicions over a particular individual who had been arrested in 2007. Clemente Garcia was a 20-year-old inmate who had been arrested on rape charges. He's always been a suspect in the police's mind. Not to mention, on the 2nd of May 2008, the Jennifer Kesse and Tiffany Sessions Missing Person Act was passed to reform the way missing person cases were handled in Florida. This was in response to heavy backlash and criticism that the police weren't doing a good enough job on such serious cases. After 3 long years of putting up with the stalker, the family eventually managed to get Tyler Green arrested on the 10th of March 2010. Though on the following Monday, he was released on the $6,000 bond. A month later, in May, a law was then passed to say that all online threats would be charged as a second-degree felony. At this point, there was only a $5,000 reward remaining for information on Jennifer's whereabouts. To keep the investigation alive, her parents even sold their home and incurred some significant costs through legal fees and a private investigator. Also, in the aftermath of Jennifer's disappearance, her uncle, Bill Gilmore, wrote a book about it, specifically addressing the construction workers and the safety concerns Jennifer had through being around them. As Jennifer's case went on with no leads, despite her family's backbreaking efforts to push it forward, the police refused to classify it as an official cold case. This was ideally what Drew and Joyce wanted, because if Jennifer's case was put to be an unsolved case, then that would mean more police resources would be diverted into solving it. In 2010, the FBI eventually took over the case.
The Orlando Police Department has conducted a very aggressive investigation into this situation. But as you know, when you have someone else to, come in and with fresh eyes and take a look at a situation, whether it be a document that somebody's drafted or an investigation, and as in this case, a lot of times people will see different things that maybe may have been missed, or at least we make sure they weren't missed.
In 2018, Jennifer's parents officially sued the Orlando Police Department for access to Jennifer's case records. Her parents reasoned that since Jennifer had gone missing, the police just hadn't handled her case in a way that was efficient or helpful. This included waiting 48 hours before they even bothered to search for her, not doing proper checks on all the construction workers, and then not being able to come up with anything from Jennifer's car.
Believe it. Still can't believe that Jennifer was the victim of a heinous crime. I can't believe she was stolen. Can't believe I haven't hugged her, kissed her, talked to her, laughed with her.
We know how many law enforcement officials have looked at Jennifer's case and have come up with absolutely nothing. But now it's our turn. We cannot see that person's face ever in anything that we have because they're just timed exactly right behind fence posts. Luckiest person in the world. They are no longer by law required to look for Jennifer. We had to sign a contract with them saying that much.
Are you okay with that?
We're going to have to be. We're okay with that because we don't think that we're doing anything for the last 10 years anyhow.
This is something that is haunting me. We need to see what's inside that carpet.
In 2019, the lawsuit was settled, with this family gaining access to over 16,000 record files. They spent $80,000 to get this result. Originally, all these records were meant to be handed over in the next 4 months, but it took the department years to do so. Whilst this was going on, search efforts for Jennifer were briefly renewed in April 2019, when a potential tip came through. Consequently, Sunshine State Sonar collaborated with Jennifer's family to search Lake Fisher in Orange County, Florida. This came after a witness said that around the time of Jennifer's disappearance, they had seen a pickup truck dumping a rolled up carpet into the lake. The sonar company searched the entire lake, except for the really highly vegetated areas. They recorded depths of up to 19.8 feet. They even used infrared HD cameras to investigate any anomalies they came across. They also deployed divers, but unfortunately nothing came of this search. Further dives are planned sometime in the future to explore the more vegetated areas they couldn't gain access to. Getting back to Drew and Joyce, who now had all the case files, they realised one big striking contrast. Originally, the Orlando Police Department had claimed that there had been no DNA pulled from the car, yet the files suggested they did. They said that there had been a strand of DNA in the car, as well as a latent fingerprint from Jennifer. Off the back of this, in 2022, the FBI passed Jennifer's case over to the FDLE Cold Case Unit for further investigation. The new detectives on the case will start from scratch, and Jennifer's family are really positive about this change. Now, as normal, towards the end of my cold case videos, we start to talk about theories and discuss them, though I would like to say that these theories should never be treated as fact. The first theory is probably the most least likely, which is human trafficking. Yes, Jennifer was young and she was beautiful, and there were illegals in the area at the time, but Jennifer didn't really fit the description for a typical victim of human trafficking. Usually, the girls that are trafficked are either low-income earners, runaways, or individuals that struggle with substance abuse. This is because they are more vulnerable and less likely to be reported missing. Jennifer was the opposite of this. She had a healthy relationship, a good earning job, and she had no history of substance abuse. The second theory is that the perpetrator is someone Jennifer knows. After all, a lot of people who were connected to her were interviewed during the investigation. For example, Matt, Jennifer's ex-boyfriend, and Travis, Logan's friend, were both at the condo a week before Jennifer went missing. Jennifer was meant to mail Travis's phone back to him, but she never got around to doing so, and like her phone, his wasn't recovered. So there wasn't that much to explore with Travis. But Matt, on the other hand, was her ex-boyfriend. So that in itself is a considerable motive, but on its own it's quite weak reasoning. It's also worth noting that Matt was officially ruled out to be the person in the video. Then there was Logan, Jennifer's brother, who was also investigated briefly, just because he was in her condo with the other two boys. But this is the furthest reach because himself and Jennifer had such a close bond, as I said they were practically best friends. Rob Allen, Jennifer's current boyfriend, had an alibi that was backed by the police, so he was quickly cleared and there's not really much more to explore with him. Another interesting individual who the police investigated is unnamed, but was actually another of Jennifer's ex-boyfriends. Like Matt, he wanted to get back together with her. Reportedly, the night before Jennifer went missing, this unnamed boyfriend was located at a bar near Jennifer's home. Though, according to the police, he was interrogated very thoroughly, and they said he wasn't a suspect. Though it is important to note at this point, the public had really lost faith in the police, especially in regards to this particular case and how they had handled it. So to this day, the unnamed ex-boyfriend still has quite a lot of suspicion on him because he's never come forward and denied any of the claims. The last person which comes into the people Jennifer knows theory is the one which I find is the most condemning, and that's one of Jennifer's managers. If you can remember, Jennifer's work computer was taken in for forensic analysis when the police got a hold of it, and it was on that they unearthed that there was messages from Jennifer's manager to herself in which he wanted to pursue a romantic relationship. Obviously, Jennifer denied him. Some at the workplace even said that when Jennifer would even mention Rob, this manager would get all jealous and angry and distrustful. Not to mention, he was increasingly aggravated over Jennifer's second promotion and adamantly believed that she did not deserve it. Also, the morning of Jennifer's disappearance, he was late to work, which is extremely out of character for him. As her manager, he would likely know what day she was coming back from her vacation and what day she was due to be back at work. He might have even had her residence on company records. It was also rumoured that sometime after Jennifer had disappeared, this particular manager had made very distasteful comments in light of her disappearance. He was saying things like, Jennifer was dead, or the Gators have got to her by now. The police say he wasn't involved, but internet sleuths adamantly disagree with this, and have even gone as far as to say that the manager committed the crime and then paid someone off to park the car for him. Some of the construction workers had a language barrier and they didn't want to get mixed up with the police. Would they have accepted money to help out? Like Jennifer's unnamed ex, her manager has always remained silent and has never addressed the public. But then again, if the manager had someone helping him, like a construction worker or something, then you would have thought that they would come forward when the $1 million was being offered. The third theory is that Jennifer had a stalker, perhaps someone following her up until her disappearance. I mean, they did feel comfortable enough to accost her in the daylight and in front of her home. But there are holes in this theory due to Jennifer's very dynamic work schedule. And it's not like someone could have stalked out her home while she was away, because Logan and his friends had been staying there that week. Plus, the construction workers would have seen a strange man walking around. Though it is interesting to note that because the Millennia Complex was undergoing constructions, the gates were open at all times. So it was very easy for a complete stranger to enter if they wanted to. The final fourth theory, and perhaps the most popular one, is that either the construction workers had something to do with it, or they're holding back information. After all, they would have known what time Jennifer left for work, considering how much time they've spent in the complex. And obviously, the clothes the suspect was wearing in the surveillance footage was that of a potential construction worker. The police did say that they had cleared the workers, but there are still some things that aren't really making sense. Jennifer had clear concerns over her safety, and some of the construction workers were even staying in the empty condos. During the time of the original police investigation, some of the workers didn't even let the police into their residence. And then the concept of all these empty condos that weren't even being lived in by anyone, the police didn't search them any further. It's suspected that some of the workers are undocumented, therefore if one of them was the perpetrator, they would be really hard to track down. After all, in the US, over a fifth of construction workers are considered illegal and undocumented. Not to mention, during the time the police had originally interviewed the workers, they had made excuses saying that the language barrier was really hard to overcome. Reports say that some of the workers were from Mexico, so how hard was it to get a Spanish translator in? Because the Orlando Police Department technically abides by the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968. These acts require the police to have a sworn-in translator when they're conducting an interrogation. So why wasn't this protocol followed? Unanimously, despite all the theories, one thing everyone can agree on was that it was definitely a crime with intent. Jennifer was safety conscious and she had an interest in true crime, so she really was very aware of her surroundings. To be taken without a fight could either mean that she had a weapon pulled on her, or she was knocked out with something like chloroform, or she went willingly with someone she knew. As of 2024, Jennifer's family have announced that there are some leads that the ongoing investigation is following. Yet the specifics of these leads haven't been told to the public. Regardless, Jennifer is still considered missing and endangered, featured on various missing persons and wanted lists. Her parents have shown gratitude to everyone who has helped them up until this point. They also highlighted the challenges that come with solving a case, even with the advancements of modern technology. Jennifer's family have voiced that they no longer care about punishing the perpetrator. That is not their goal. They just want to find Jennifer dead or alive.
Begging, pleading for anyone to please help them find their daughter.
Anyone with information about Jennifer's disappearance, there is a number to call, which is 941 201 4009. Hopefully 2024 is going to be Jennifer's year, but if not, we can only hope that the momentum from the leads go right into 2025. Thank you for watching. Comment yes or no down below whether you believe the police acted quick enough.